War of the Rohirrim, directed by Kenji Kamayama. Music beautifully done by Steven Gallagher and written by a ton of people. Which that might be where the problem lies because unfortunately I was disappointed in this film. My brief thoughts. Overall, I'm disappointed, but I didn't hate the film. I didn't leave feeling like triggered, upset, or like offended that they ruined anything. I don't know what I'm even counting. For sure, it could have been worse, but that still doesn't make it okay. And I have major problems with the character writing specifically. I feel like overall the story was decent. I mean, I don't know specifically the War of the Rohirrim story in the appendices. It seemed to me at least, and I think I might be right that it didn't break any lore and it was pretty in line with that short little story. The character writing was my biggest issue, and just in general how the story didn't really have anything to say. I guess that's not a big issue because it's War of the Rohirrim. So yeah, let's get into it. So it starred Brian Cox as the great Helm Hammerhand. And he was a beast. He did not disappoint. Brian Cox is a very interesting actor. He's terrific, but sometimes he can be a bit of a hater. So a part of me was slightly worried of him being a part of this. If he's gonna be like, this is for children, or like not show the respect I think Tolkien deserves, you know? And it especially being anime. But no, he totally brought it. It didn't seem like he was phoning it in. He totally was great, believable, and across the board, I think the acting was great. And there's a lot of good in this film for sure, and acting is one of it. Gaia Wise plays Hera, and I think she was great. I think her acting, her performance was great. It wasn't over the top. It wasn't wooden. It was, I think, right where it should be. And I just found out Luke Pasqualino plays the villain Wolf. And growing up in high school, I watched the show Skins, the UK Skins, and he's in the second generation, so that was cool. When I realized that after, I was like, oh shoot, it's Freddy. Anyways, so first and foremost, let's talk about the characters. As I was saying, she was a bit like Rey from the sequel trilogy, and if you know anything about writing, that's a horrible thing to say. She was better for sure. She was better than Rey, but it was the same type of thing. And for sure, this film is not as bad as the sequel trilogy, but it's in that ballpark, which is not a good place to be. And I felt like she had no flaws. Hera does everything right, and she's just a beast. She does everything right. She thinks the correct way. No one is as intelligent as her, and that was frustrating because that's what's so terrible about many writing these days for female characters, is that they feel the need to elevate a female character. You need to bring someone else down, and it's just like, no, someone could be right here, and if this person's that good, they're up there. And that doesn't really happen a lot anymore in writing. They just feel the need to shove someone down. So pretty much everyone was incompetent or just hot-headed. A hot-headed man who just wants war. Very one note, surface level. And she just is, it's funny, she's just a beast of a warrior. She could beat anyone in a fight. She could outsmart any beast, any monster. And whenever all the war generals are having a conversation, she has like the only wisdom to offer. Everyone else is just like, what should we do? We're in disarray and all this crap. And she's just like, we can't lose hope. We cannot fight amongst ourselves. And it's just like, oh wow, no one thought about this. None of these experienced war generals thought about this. So it's just ridiculous writing because, as I said, she's just amazing and no one else is good. And even her father, Helm Hammerhand, which again, he was great. He was a beast of a man and he didn't disappoint. He lived up to that like mythical legend. And you know, maybe he is exactly who he should be. You know, like just like a very one note beast of a man. He reminded me a bit of Robert Baratheon from Game of Thrones, even swinging a hammer. And you know, maybe he does need to be that type of like archetype character. But that's the thing, everyone was one note and everyone was just surface level. So that's why it's a problem, because there was no really diversity in characters. It was just everyone's the same and she's the best. And there was this other character, her cousin, his name escapes me right now, a pretty decent male character. He had some common sense, he was courageous and all that, but he was in the background. And especially for the second half of the film, he just disappears. The villain Wolf, he was very interesting in the beginning, but him too, just one note, very villainous. And that's the thing, I don't mind a character just being villainous. when done right. And I feel like here there was just no depth across the board. And even her, there wasn't really that much depth. This didn't need to be a hero's journey, a classic hero's journey. It didn't need to be like Luke Skywalker or Frodo or many of the people in the Lord of the Rings story. Like some of them are like Aragorn, but even Aragorn has a journey, you know? Like there's just so many examples where a hero's journey is like is the right way to go. But even then, if you didn't want to tell that story and you just want a character to be a beast, you can do that. That's happened so many times in film. There's John Wick, there's tons of spy, assassin, espionage type of characters out there in cinema. But what makes them so interesting is that there's always an intrigue. There's always a mystery to them, and you want to know more. And you learn more about them by their actions, how they get out of situations, and how they go up against strong foes. And here, like I said, she's the only one who's competent and great. So it's not really compelling. So that's just a huge negative, you know, because that's what makes Tolkien so great. I've read about, well, I don't know. Tolkien has a lot of writings. I can't say I've read half, but I've read most of the Silmarillion. I've read The Hobbit. I've read Fellowship, and I've read a biography. So I know a decent amount of Tolkien and what he stands for and what he means, you know? What makes Tolkien so special is not just his extensive lore, because I mean that in and of itself makes him incredible, you know? But it's not just that. It's also the fact that he's telling a story that's loaded with themes. And it's also not just that, it's his characters. His characters are so compelling. His characters are they're very diverse. It's a wide range of personalities and little journeys that everyone's going on. All of these stories, there's a huge takeaway from it. And they're all to really improve yourself, to really reflect, and to be courageous, to be kind, to be loving. You know, I'm not gonna say anything special here. There's just, everyone knows Tolkien, his writing is incredible. It doesn't need to be so loaded. It doesn't need to be so complex like The Lord of the Rings. The Hobbit is an extremely simple story. But what makes it so compelling is the characters. It's Bilbo and all the dwarves and Gandalf. It's just all of these characters that are just so compelling, and that's why we're there. And even the Hobbit films, I know that the Hobbit films have got a bad reputation, and I think it's pretty split. I think a good amount of people can still find some enjoyment, myself included. I've read the book, but I see the flaws, but I still feel like the films are pretty fun. And they get the characters right, for the most part. And I think that's what makes those films so bearable, because the characters, especially Bilbo, it's how we want them, it's how we remember them, and we connect to it. And he's so engaging and entertaining. And here, it wasn't quite that. So that's the very major issue. But just other little issues is anime. I love anime. I got anime right there. I love the animation. I love the direction of this film. But I felt like, why use the anime medium and not really use it? Because it just is aesthetically anime. There was no like the way that they articulate emotion, or the way that they articulate certain things, wasn't in a very anime way. It was very just Hollywood, and nothing about it felt like this is anime, just aesthetically. That's a bit disappointing, you know, because anime usually has backstories and they flesh things out, and maybe for some people it's a bit dramatic, but to me it's great writing, you know, when done right, of course, because there's bad anime out there. And I feel like besides aesthetics, that wasn't present in this film. And that's probably because there was a ton of writers. In all the interviews, there's just 3 writers showing up. And even then, I'm like, 3 writers? But when the film ended, I was like, the hell? Was that like 6 writers? Like, what the hell? Do we need that many? So that probably contributes to this writing of why I didn't like it. But yeah, and I was completely ready to like this film. I did not come in negative. Unlike Star Wars and Marvel, I still had the benefit of the doubt for Lord of the Rings, for Warner Brothers, because Rings of Power is Amazon, so I'm not even gonna talk about that. But in terms of Warner Brothers, Lord of the Rings, in my opinion, I don't think they've failed us that much. The Hobbit films aren't that bad to me, so I'm like, there's no reason to hate on this. And even though Hera wasn't an important character and they were elevating her, still, I was like, there's no need to dislike this. There's no need to be cautiously optimistic, because it could be great. There's nothing wrong with the female protagonist when you do it right, you know? It is a huge disappointment for me, because I was ready to love this film, and yeah, I'm disappointed for sure. But there was good, you know, there was a great score, great direction, great acting. great animation. Sometimes the animation looked too real for the characters. Like the characters are 2D and the environment almost looked like Unreal Engine. But that was like twice. For the most part, the animation was great. Yeah, it's very interesting because I feel like a lot was done right, but such an important thing like the characters, the main characters, ultimately left much to be desired, and that really sucks. But yeah, those are my thoughts. That's my rambling for this film. Let me know your guys' thoughts. Thanks for watching.